last class when we went over this, but I want you to remember slide 2, particularly as we think about the fourth period, right? And I call it this slide, Carl and I call it the infamous 1970s analysis of the streets. Now I've talked about this before, but let's talk about it really quickly again, all right? Because again, we're setting the stage for the fourth period. What does it mean? What were the conditions that created street life in this setting, in this context, in this contemporary context, right? And if you go to the literature, particularly if you read someone like a Julius Wilson, or particularly if folk in here read the Eric Ekholm articles from the New York Times about the plight, the deepening plight of black men, right? He even makes brief reference to it. But this is a very, very popular thesis as to why street life exists. This is the dominant argument right now in the literature. But more specifically, these 7 things. But the economic recession, that's probably the chief thing argued, and that's what Ekholm makes quick reference to. But in the 1970s, there was a severe economic recession, probably the worst in which the country ever experienced, outside of the Great Depression. This economic recession far worse even than the one that we're experiencing now. And the one that we're experiencing now is pretty bad. But this one was much worse, right? So, but more specifically, in addition to it being an economic recession, more specifically, what Ekholm talks about briefly and other folk talk about more extensively is that there were loss of labor or manufacturing-based markets or jobs. What does that mean? What does that mean? Michael, we get caught up in jargon real fast, but what does that mean?
It's like factories and stuff that used to be in the city that are already in the jobs.
Absolutely. So, right, we're paying attention to all God's children. We're paying attention to Claude Brown in the Promised Land, right? They're talking about what? Particularly Claude Brown. They're talking about going down to the garment industry. That's where they work in great bulk, in great numbers, right? Those types of jobs, literally, you have to understand the psychology and the structural shift here. Literally, there was an opportunity in the United States of America where you can go work for a factory, or you can work for some labor-based market or some labor-based industry, and you can take care of your whole family. All you needed maybe was a high school diploma. You can provide a job. You can provide cars for you and your wife. You can send your child to college. You can get you a nice home in the suburbs, right? Not in the projects, but in the suburbs. Particularly if you got one of those nice car industry jobs, one of them GM jobs, right? All of those jobs virtually were wiped away. A stroke of a pen or a stroke of policy. And we rapidly transitioned to what was referred to as a technology-based market. And that's what we're in now, right? So it's all about technology, right? If we're paying attention to Ekholm, it's all about education, right? Because with educational opportunities and degrees and certification and so forth and so on, then we have the opportunity to now participate in this technology-based market because it requires that. It requires an education. Or so that is the argument. I'm not totally sold on that. I would ultimately argue, Ekholm isn't arguing this, but I would ultimately argue this shift, right? This rapid shift in the 1970s to a technology-based market and the requirement of educational degrees to maintain or to hire folk, that was more so a way to weed out poor black people. Poor black people. So shifting the markets, making it about all education, now stratifies our society in Middle America in ways that we've never seen before. This became a legal and a moral way to leave out poor black people. Guess who we had at the head of all of that, promoting that idea? This newly, which we just talked about all semester, but definitely last class, this new black middle class. Right? Because now we don't have the excuse anymore. It's kind of like the Barack Obama effect. We got a black president, so you can't make any more excuses no more. It's totally up to you. I don't buy that. Just because we have a black president, we still got real issues. Just because he made it doesn't mean that the bulk of masses can. And we can't lose sight of that. But that's what definitely happened in the 1970s. So you had this major shift, right? Now we have this major new black middle class that comes on board, and they're at the helm, just like they are in Black Reconstruction, and this is what Du Bois is talking about in Philadelphia Negro, and other books like Souls of Black Folk, and even Black Reconstruction, right? He says the black middle class would eventually, right, particularly after they were provided certain opportunities, were eventually used to leave out their own people. Because those are the folk that are marshaling these arguments. Yes?
You said you're going to send us the slides, right?
I'm going to send you this, absolutely. I'm going to resend this one because there are new slides in here from last week that wasn't in the original PowerPoint, and I want you to know.
All right, thank you.
Okay. In addition to that, increased unemployment rates. We talked about that last week in the 70s as well as in the 80s. We had a Middle East oil energy crisis, far worse than we are experiencing now, although things are a lot better. I drove by the gas station this morning. Gas was on $1.88 for a gallon. I said, Jesus, Lord have mercy. So I guess we're not going through an oil crisis. Although Mr. Gibbons had a pretty interesting thesis. I don't know if you want to share that really quick.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, if you remember in the summertime when gas was talking about $5 gas, etc., we didn't have a housing market crisis. So now it becomes a decision of whether you want to live in a home or whether you want to drive your car. Gas is a lot cheaper, but y'all can't live in your house. So it comes down to you figuring out which one takes top priority.
Yeah.
So gas is a lot cheaper. You can drive your car, but now you can't live in your own home because you can't make the payment. So sleep in your car. Yep, sleep in your car.
So I'm always that's a nice analysis, and you know it's sometimes you can't just get caught up in what may seem like opportunity.
Another thing about the manufacturing thing, the industries we're moving towards this more technological, advanced, I guess, way of thinking. The other part that made it so hurtful, I guess, to poor black communities was the fact that it's not like we still don't need factories to make stuff. No matter how technologically savvy you get, to make the camera, you still need somebody to make the parts for the camera. It's the fact that you now have a large amount of outsourcing to other nations that also kind of crippled that market. So not that factories got done away with per se, is that factories in America got done away with. And factories did start to pop up all around the nation where they could pay, for labor much cheaper than they could.
Yeah, totally. Great point. All right, Vietnam War played a major role as well, and criminal justice system was a big issue. Again, like Dr. Victoria Stein said, there's a 700% increase in the criminal justice system after 1980 up until this point. We had a major drug epidemic that resurfaced, right? We had one before that resurfaced again in the 1970s, particularly around cocaine and heroin. And we had the Black Power movement. We talked about COINTELPRO in some detail last week. Keep this in mind. The reason why I'm referring to this as the infamous, or Carl and I are referring to this as the infamous 1970s analysis, because although this is true, although we would agree that this is predictive to some extent, to some real extent, of black men in the streets today, right? However, if we get totally sucked into this argument, right, so most scholars would argue street life is here because of this. And I'm arguing, and this course is arguing, that that's not true. Street life was around centuries before at concentrated levels. Not to say that this wasn't predictive. I think this is an excellent analysis. But this is not the predicting analysis for street life today. And if you read the literature, they would say it's the mythic past again, which is really the next slide. I'm not going to get into it. But point is this, that they're essentially arguing that before the 1970s, everything was great. But when we ran up to the 1970s, right, and we ran across these issues, I went backwards when I go forward. Oh, I did go backwards, excuse me. But we went into these issues, and all of a sudden, these kids became street. Right? And I think that is an oversimplified analysis of what's going on. More important, it's dangerous, and it's dismissing an entire people's history in exchange for an artificial history. Right? This mythic past. All right, let's be done with this.